The scale-out event testing starts with generating some iPerf sessions from two clients to two servers to get that CPU utilization up to 100%. I put a stopwatch on just to see how long it would take. Looking at the FortiGate, I can see 100% CPU utilization, which is where I want it to be. In order to push this or trigger this scale-out event, I did use a 2 CPU VM as opposed to a 4. So that's the client and the servers there in green for iPerf. I did set the scale event to be 40% of the CPU and the wait time to be about 2 minutes. This is Azure's wait time, looking at the compute utilization to be an average of 40% or higher utilization, and they do that metric or that reading with a 1 minute granularity. So I would expect to see a scale-out event around the 3 minute mark. So let's see what happens. I didn't want to edit the video to, make it look and have the watch or the stopwatch jump. So we still haven't scaled out yet. CPU utilization is still between 80 and 100%. Also, to generate load, I did create a policy that is using quite a bit of inspection, so that uses up quite a bit of CPU or processor capability. Okay, so right about the 3 minute mark, we have a scale-out event. Now, as part of the scale-out event, the new instance needs to be added to the backend for each load balancer, the external load balancer and the internal load balancer. There's the external, here's the internal load balancer. So the external and internal interfaces of the new FortiGate instance have been added to the load balancer backend pool so that traffic can be sent to those, that FortiGate based on the load balancer's awareness of the health metric coming from the FortiGate. The FortiGates, or the FortiGate instances that scale out, will retrieve their license from the FortiFlex environment. That's part of the deployment. The FortiFlex access was put into the components for the Azure Function app that manages the scaling in and the scaling out events and the licensing of those instances. So about 4.5 minutes in, maybe a little bit longer, 4 minutes and 40 seconds in, we see that the instance type or the new scale-out instance is running as far as Azure is concerned. However, as part of the process of scale-out, a license is requested from the FortiFlex environment. That license is then applied and the FortiGate has to reboot. So now the FortiGate's available. So 3-minute instance launch to 6 minutes on the stopwatch for availability. That's 3 minutes from deployment and activation with a license. Logging in read-only because it is a secondary member of the auto configuration or autoscale environment, with the initial FortiGate that was already there being the primary member, the one that configuration would be changed on, and then also the one that would, if you're using FortiManager, that the configuration would be sent to. So here I was attempting to get when traffic would start to flow through, and just cut and paste, put in some strange characters. I'm attempting to do an SSH session from one instance to another, from my spoke 1 to my spoke 2. Now, while I can make a connection, it isn't going through this FortiGate. So the FortiGates are behind a load balancer, and it really depends on what the load balancer chooses from a session connectivity. What I realize is happening here is that when I look at the configuration, some of the things that I expected from the primary have not synced up yet. So even though the FortiGate is there and available for traffic, if there are policies that are part of the primary's configuration that have not yet been synchronized, this FortiGate or all instances get a static configuration that's defined at deployment time, not of the instance, but of the actual environment itself. And so these policies that are there are not coming from the primary, they are coming from the initial configuration. So probably in this example, we have policies so we can pass traffic, but in a production environment, I probably wouldn't have any policies because I would want them to come from the primary. It looks to be about 9 minutes on the stopwatch where we'll have an event where the new instance type will reach out to the primary to get its configuration. And the way we know that happens is that the interface will, or the FortiGate UI will drop out. And actually I've changed from going to SSH to trying ping, and the ping does go through because there is an existing policy of port 2 to port 2 to support east-west traffic. We'll see that come up here in just a moment. So now the ping is coming through that instance at about 9 minutes, which would be 6 minutes from the deployment of the instance type, or the scale-out instance. However, it'll be another few seconds, probably 30 seconds, to when the peer, or this instance, synchronizes with the primary to bring over all of the policies. With that being the case, in a production environment, I wouldn't have any configuration, static configuration that is being pulled onto this environment. as part of the deployment of the instance, but only get my configuration other than any base configuration that's needed for traffic, internet traffic, licensing traffic, etc. I would probably only get that from the primary when this was to come in. So based on that, if we had an instance launch starting at 3 minutes on this stopwatch to one with all the configuration I'm showing here now, and I shouldn't have stopped that stopwatch, but I'm going to say it's about 10 minutes at this point. So anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. So the initial 3 minutes waiting for the autoscale event to happen, and then this configuration being pulled over from the primary at just about 10 minutes. So anywhere from 5 to 7. And I say that because if there are policies that can be static, like east-west policies, they would be automatically added.